You're listening to On the Way Home with your host, Emmy Kelly.
Hi, everyone. I am Emmy Kelly, your host for On the Way Home, and accompanied by my very lazy but absolutely adorable co-host in the background there, Zeus Kelly. Today, we are going to meet with Devin Tu, who is the founder of Affordable 360. And Devin Tu joins us today to talk about tech solutions for advancing affordable housing and nonprofit housing, including tools that he has designed with the use of AI. We'll jump right in. Hey, Devin, welcome to the show. Everyone, Devin Tu is the founder of Affordable 360, the social enterprise entity that helps nonprofits accelerate affordable housing development at no cost, supported by CMHC and commercial entity MapYourProperty. Hey, Devin.
Hey, great to have me on. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Awesome. We're gonna keep our signature question here, and maybe you've had a chance to think more since we last had you on the podcast. So tell us, what does home mean to you?
Yeah, that's a question I always hear, and I had a little think about it. But I think home for me personally is a home for my children. A place where they can sleep, eat, and learn without worries. And I didn't realize it's so important, that they're rested for school, they're not stressed, they can learn. And I think, making sure, our children and our future is there is absolutely important. Could have lifelong impacts. So for future generations. So that's how I personally feel.
Do you have any stories of when you were a child at home that gave you that connection?
Yeah, I just remember, just like my parents, and then when I'm waking up as a parent, being able to see myself being, or my kids being, just so rested and happy. That's what makes me happy. And like anybody, we would, that's what we would do first, right? And I think that home, being able to rest, being able to study in a quiet area, not being stressed about noise or not knowing where to sleep, is a huge stress on our kids. And if I didn't have that, with my parents' support and their house, I would be so distracted by everything else, and I don't think I would be where I am today if I had those problems. So I'm very thankful personally. That's the key thing I realize, is that that home, gets you rested, keeps you learning, and keeps you happy, right? It's where you go to sleep, right? You don't have to see anybody, talk to anybody
Out
else.
of bed first thing in the morning in the safety of your home in your pajamas looking ugly.
Yes.
Yeah, those are all the things, right? It's that safety.
Yeah.
You have an incredible journey to share. Are you able to share a bit with the audience today how you came into the space and what you're working on right now?
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. I worked about 10 years for government, for the Australian and the Ontario government on a lot of regulations. So I used to look through binders and binders. We used to have these binders at work. Maybe I think 40 different regulations are triggered for, any type of housing. And I've looked through 150 maps and binders just for one single property. And it's really burdensome and cumbersome. Like, you literally fall asleep. And I know Blue Door, faced a lot of red tape and, got that Ministry of Zoning order for Kevin's place. So congratulations. But crazy bureaucracy like that, like, I had to deal with all that. So that's where I started from. And that's why I started, I started this idea where how do we use software and technology to accelerate all these burdensome regulations? How do you get through all that red tape? How do you have a computer kind of automate that? So, people like you can focus on helping vulnerable communities, not stuck with ministry zoning orders, and paperwork to try to build build housing for those in need. So that's kind of where I started from, and that's why we're here now.
So I'm really interested to hear how the tool will actually remove those barriers?
Yeah. So
Or how will it advance nonprofit and affordable housing?
yeah, I think we had this chat like 2 years ago about your housing projects. I mean, if you look at affordable housing today, the three biggest barriers is the zoning of the planning, right? Which you guys had to face and try to getting a zoning order for more density. That's the biggest stopper. Architectural design. What do you want to put in there? Do you want to put in single families? Do you want to put in women's shelters? Trying to get those concepts. A lot of nonprofits just don't know what they can build, where they can build, and how much they can build. And I think the last one, I think we talked about this 2 years ago, was costs, right? Costs can grow. Costs could be, you got I think we're looking at some projects. Their average is 10 million, right? For apartments or something like that, and that's a lot of money. So those three things, we try to use technology in 3 clicks. So you can click on any property, pull up all the key zoning requirements, what you're allowed to do, what type of multifamily, townhouses, single family, is it a 50-story apartment? We can do the massing and design concepts. How many units can you fit on there? So if you're doing, senior housing, how many senior units can you fit? Is it 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom? And then the last one is really trying to help nonprofits understand those costs. And those are very expensive to do. If you don't have internal resources, which is most likely not, you're hiring consultants paying $100,000. Where today, you can, as we're seeing AI evolve, you can use software to get a general idea about what are all the limitations, what are all the barriers, and what are all your costs before you go spend $100,000 on a project that might not ever be viable. And that's what we're trying to save. We're really trying to save time and money for those nonprofits on finding the best sites, not spending $100,000 on a site that would never work out in the first place.
That's super good. Yeah, I was chatting with someone the other day, and they were saying about how often in our space we want to be conservative with costs, and we want to make quick progress, and so oftentimes what happens is later on down the line there's challenges associated with considerations that weren't accounted for at the start of a project. So this sounds like a tool to help with that.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more specifically about the tool? How did it come about? What is it? So that the listeners
Yeah.
can actually think about how the solution might impact the work they do.
Yeah, so we have three sections of the software, and just to start off with, we don't throw software at people and say try it. I think we tried it with your group too, and learned the worst way. No one's going to do that. We will definitely help you. We'll train you. We'll do some advisory work too, and we'll lead you all the way, till shovel ready, at no cost. But we have an online platform. Our first is our Pro Planner tool, and you can click a property and it'll tell you all the different regulatory restrictions. So your zoning, maybe you can only build 2 stories here, your parking requirements, any kind of land use or transportation or density bonus restrictions. So those are all the different regulations you'd have to comply with. It'll spit you out a report that says, hey, you have to do this, 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 and this. And then we have this new software called Giraffe. It's called generative design. If you don't know what that means, basically in 3 clicks, it'll make you a 3D model of any house. And we've taken the CMHC catalog, like template designs that they've released, and we can drop any type of housing that you want to fit on that property. So we could drop townhomes. I think we have senior apartments. We have, duplexes, apartments, and we can do different shapes and sizes to make sure that you understand, I can get 20 units on this property, or I can get 10. So like Kevin's place, you guys got a lot of good density on there by going up to 3.5 stories. But being able to visualize that is probably the most important. So we give you this kind of 3D rendering. And then you can go to counselors or donators or sponsors, because visually they can see that. And then the Class D kind of cost estimation, we have the software. We will take, Blue Doors project that they're working on. We're taking Habitat projects and different projects that have already worked, and we'll use those costs to help you estimate how much the apartment is. So we'll literally take what Kevin's place is and like copy it over to another property in mind for a nonprofit, and those costs are already there, and that'll give you the cost estimate. So the third product is just basically like a calculator. So you have a map, kind of design 3-click software, and then another 3-click calculator. All 3 clicks, because no one can figure out what to do after 3 clicks. They get too confused. So we try to keep it to that.
So if I'm hearing you right,
Yeah.
because I think Blue Door has like interest now as we're building our land trust and, for the region, as well as new opportunities for development. Am I hearing you right to say that if we have, let's say, a potential property, we can use the Affordable 360 program and kind of imagine what could be in that space to advance the project and design into like costing conversations and stuff like that? That's awesome.
I love that. You should be our spokesman. I like how you summarize that for your listeners. Yeah. I definitely. It's planning, design, and cost. 1, 2, 3. That's kind of our motto there.
That's awesome. And you said free also?
It's completely free, supported by CMHC National Housing Strategy and the center. So we don't charge anybody for anything. So yeah, 100% free. You get all those for free.
This sounds like a tool that our listeners would love, because in the nonprofit space, we are tasked with some of the most challenging and complex problems on very limited resources. So when we have resources that can help us advance the mission and they're free, that is a huge bonus. What are some of the key benefits to using Affordable 360?
Yeah, I think time is one of the biggest problems with affordable housing. I think a pre-development feasibility, or it's what you call all the due diligence before shovel in the ground, before construction, can take an average from 1 to 2 years. We're actually seeing mostly on the 2-year side. We have a 12-week program, and so we'll get you all that information in about in less than 3 months. So you have that information for your board to make a decision on whether you want to spend. So time is the biggest sense. I think costs and money. Your consultants we estimate $100,000 savings for the basic due diligence that we provide, not the crazy complex stuff, but you can save 100,000 that you can put toward maybe another unit, or allows your team to focus on helping those in need. And so that's the time and money is the biggest sense. And then your last one is being able to identify a property that is ideal for your type of housing that you want to put in and who you want to service. So about 50% of all properties that we look at are not viable. So that's just an interesting stat. About, if you look at real estate side, they look at about 250 properties and they buy only 1 or 2. So that's a 99% disqualification. So that's what our program is trying to really help, is help those nonprofits find the best location that they're going to be able to do shovel ready within a year, and try to accelerate that housing to construction, to starting. And I know you've personally gone through that journey, right? So that's how we're trying to change things.
Yeah, it sounds helpful. We have an opportunity now where we're looking to, it's like pre-development, and this sounds like an opportunity to kind of pencil in some type of plans to advance the conversation further, so that we can actually make that pre-development work come to pass. So that's awesome. I'd like to set up a meeting after. Could you talk about a specific project that you've worked on and how it worked out, like a bit of a success story of the use of your tool?
Yeah, I think probably the most interesting one, I feel like, was working with Indigenous groups in Northern Ontario. I think the On Reserve Indigenous group had housing that they had built, several years ago. It wasn't to the best specs, and they had black mold. Excuse me. They had black mold coming in there, and they wanted to keep their community members in there, on the reserve, and they need to provide housing. So they have lots of land. So we rendered, worked with them, and showed them how to be able to look at, a single family homes on several plots of land. And for them, we worked with RPM Indigenous, which is an engineering firm led by Chris Fuller and Chris Deary, and we worked with them also on kind of how to get the infrastructure in there too. We didn't go into that much detail, but we built some concepts for roads and kind of a community center, and kind of made more of a master plan thing for the whole reserve. I know it's still ongoing, but I felt like that type of case study was the one that was in most dire need, right? You, as I said, what does home mean to me? Someplace you can feel safe. You're not worried about, bad living conditions or sleeping conditions. And so I learned a lot from that. Also working with Indigenous groups is very different. You got to be a lot more sensitive to their needs. And it's a lot more different, say, from building a apartment in Toronto, right? So really like that project there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And to use it in such a high impact way is really amazing.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, you did touch on the AI piece of your tool, and your experience with binders and falling asleep while you were sorting those binders. Can you touch a little bit more for me on the role that AI plays in pushing forward the agenda of housing in the context of our housing crisis right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the misnomers is like the AI is like all knowing and going to replace humans tomorrow, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. We still need you, Emmy. There's no housing terminator robot out there yet, but I think AI can really help. That pre-development due diligence, a lot of scanning for those documents. So we're testing out an AI that can comb through all the zoning documents. So if I just want to go, can I build apartments or can I build townhomes on this property? And you just type it into like a chat GPT, it'll go find the section of that bylaw and only show you the relevant information around housing. You don't want to know about office or retail or industrial warehouse plants. You just want to know the right section out of the 800 pages. So I think for a layman person or you're not a land use planner like me, and you don't want to go through 800 pages, the AI generative bot can do that. I think we're seeing huge gains with generative design. So instead of hiring a really expensive architect for 30 grand to generate a housing, if you can try this now in ChatGPT, you can ask to generate like an urban Victorian looking townhouse, and it'll generate you an image. And we can even drop basic designs in there, and it'll skin the whole thing to make it look pretty. And that would cost you, tons of money. And those take 1 to 3 months to get back from the architect. And then the third one we're testing out right now is AI detection for construction costs, construction takeoffs. So it can look at designs or drawings and do full construction estimations. It can detect all the walls, all the toilets and kitchen appliances, and all the doors that you want, and it'll calculate all your costs and provide you an estimate. And I know that takes 3 to 4 months, and it's really expensive to do it by hand, which is how they do it today. So we really think AI can detect a lot of that mind-numbing work, but it's not going to build your house tomorrow.
Well, any tools right now that can help us advance housing are welcome. So who would you say that this tool and this program is designed for?
Yeah, I think it's really where our focus for Affordable 360 is focused on nonprofit affordable housing, and government housing agencies also. We're working with a few of those. and to help accelerate their pre-development housing. So we really focus on we've helped out about 35 different organizations. So we've helped out some housing management bodies in Alberta who are building senior lodging, senior housing. We've helped rural and indigenous groups. We've kind of helped a little bit with Blue Door looking for opportunities, for all types of, right. You got homeless, single men. We've done women's shelters. So all the variety of different types of housing in affordable housing we can adjust for, and it's agnostic. We've done all of Canada. So that's kind of really focused on affordable housing. They should have preferably a property in mind and looking to try to build housing within the next 2 years. Kind of that's where we really can make that impact.
Very cool. So what could you tell us what you're working on now and what your hopes are going forward for Affordable 360 in the future?
Yeah, we just started this new project called Trusted Partner Program. So once you finish, the pre-development and you're like, oh, I'm ready to go, we're starting this kind of mentor program called Trusted Partners, and we brought in all different groups like CADCO, Flourish, all the different architectural consultants and funders to help go the next step. So how do I get funding? How do I look at civil engineering issues? How do I look at flood issues? How do I raise money? How do I work on maintenance and operations? How do I get a CMHC loan? And that program, we're starting one on June 10th. And then if the podcast comes after that, we're doing one in September. And you get these 30-minute sessions to meet with professionals. They don't charge you money. And I told them not to try to sell them, but they're giving back. And you'll be able to get that other part, that kind of the last process to get you kind of to the end. But overall, I think we have funding until June of 2026, and we're trying to helping out 6,000 units by the end, and maybe about 50 different organizations. And our last crazy one that we're working on is we are working on a public lands, faith-based, and nonprofit lands database national-wide. So that should be about 80,000 properties, and we already have most of the public lands and faith-based lands already tracked. So that's a great opportunity for nonprofit or any agencies to find land that is free or for cheap, and be able to put that cost toward helping others instead. So those are 3 crazy projects that we have going.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. So sounds like a lot going on there and a lot of tools that can be used. Where can people go to find out more or to contact you if they want to get going with some of these solutions?
Yeah, I mean, you can hit me on LinkedIn at Devin Tu, TU, and I reply really quickly on that. We have our Affordable 360 website, so affordable360.ca. You can go and sign up for that, and we'll try to contact you, or you can just email me directly at devin@affordable360.ca, and I reply very quickly to all 3 of those. If you're interested in the program, let me know. It's completely free, and we're starting intakes. Actually, we filled up our intake for this cohort that's starting right now, and we're taking intakes right now for late summer and September.
Devin, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me on, Hemi.
You're listening to On the Way Home with your host, Emmy Kelly.